Hi there, my name is Jaseinthewild and I want to thank you for watching one of my videos. This particular video is part of a collection of episodes that cover my recent walk from Taree to Newcastle. So a little bit more about that one in a second. This is my second long walk that I've done, the first being back in June of 2020, and that was the Great North Walk. So some of you might remember that video or those videos. They have now been split out into episodes, just like this one is going to be. Because obviously, when you do something like a 10-day hike and you record video, you end up having a lot of video. And from memory, the Great North Walk video ended up being around the 2-hour mark. So I wanted to split this one up into episodes, which is what I've done. And you're currently watching episode 1. This is just a little bit of an intro spiel to tell you what to expect. There will be a little bit of an intro and an outro to each video, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain in just a second. But like I said, this is the second long walk that I've done, and I'm about to launch into that now. But this particular walk was to build on the Great North Walk that I did in June. So the Great North Walk, for those of you that don't know, is a marked trail that goes from Sydney to Newcastle, either way, depending on which way you want to go. And so I actually did that in reverse. I started in Newcastle and I walked back to Sydney. Now obviously 2020 has been an interesting year. We've had COVID and travel hasn't exactly been something that we've been able to do. So I sort of tried to broaden my horizons in terms of what walks I could do here in New South Wales. And unfortunately there are still a lot of long trails that are regenerating from the bushfires that we had earlier in the year. You know, remember that happened before COVID. So some of those big named tracks that we know of, like the Alpine track and 𝗗𝗆𝗶𝗴 and some of those other tracks like that, they still have a lot of damage from the bushfires, and those tracks are either closed or they haven't been maintained to allow that regeneration process to do its thing. So anyway, wanting to do another long walk and not being able to look at any of those named trails, at least that I was aware of, I decided to create my own. And part of that kind of became, well, I'd really like to do this whole of New South Wales walk, walking from the top or the bottom to the other side. So, you know, New South Wales border with Victoria to New South Wales border with Queensland, or vice versa. So I started to break that up into somewhat bite-sized pieces that I could do bit by bit. And this is essentially one of those pieces. So the Great North Walk formed piece number 1. And this walk, which is Taree to Newcastle, is forming part number 2. So again, there's no particular order in which I'll do these parts. It really depends on time that I can get away from work and, you know, other things like that. Some of them will be 10 days, some of them will be longer, just based on distance. And again, what direction I walk them in is based on what makes life kind of easier. So again, starting in Taree and finishing in Newcastle meant that I could jump straight on the train and come home to Sydney. So that's what I decided to do. So yeah, starting out in October, I planned out a track that would take me from Taree down to Newcastle. I estimated that it would take about 10 days to do that. I probably didn't plan the track as well as I could have, and we'll get maybe into that a little bit later. But you know, I had an essential track that I was going to follow. The big difference with this walk is that with the Great North Walk, it is a marked trail, which means regardless of how long you want to spend on the track or where you want to stop, you are on a trail that is marked clearly the whole way. And there are expectations that come with that, right? You know that you're going to be able to get from A to B, amongst a whole bunch of other stuff. When you go out and create your own trail, you kind of forego that expectation. You obviously hope that what you've marked and what you've planned to do is going to be there and is going to be clear and you're going to be able to get through. But there's no guarantee, and there's no little signpost saying left or right or anything like that. You're essentially making your own way. I didn't necessarily think that would be a huge problem. I mean, after all, when I was making the plans, I was looking at trails, I was marking it on the map. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, I had a clear path to follow. What I found in practice was that, yeah, even though trails might have been marked, they weren't there anymore, or they hadn't been used for a long time. So this kind of went from hike or an adventure through to maybe what you would call an expedition, right? It was, you know, somewhat charting the unknown, at least from a personal perspective, right? Obviously, none of the areas that I walked in are untouched, but there were certainly areas that I walked that there was no trail, and maybe there had been a trail in the past and there wasn't anymore, or maybe there'd never been a trail and I had made a mistake. So there were areas where I was walking through thick bush and yeah, I was really quite confronted by that. But again, we'll get to that later into the episodes. So one of the things that really did strike me as part of this walk versus, say, the Great North Walk is that I recorded a lot more video, particularly talking to the camera through the Great North Walk. And I think that was because it was a safe walk. And by that I mean I knew what to expect. And with that expectation meant that I had a sense of comfort. And even though the walk itself was very tough, I was always relaxed in the sense that I knew where I was going. With this walk, there was a number of times where I felt genuine concern that I wouldn't get from A to B, either because a track would disappear or I had made poor plans. And so I had this feeling of anxiety that kind of was more consuming. I had to just focus on getting from A to B. And the result of that is that I didn't record as much as I would have liked. And it also meant that at the end of the day, I was very, very tired. And throughout the day, I would tell myself, that's fine. When I get to camp, I will, record a better video that explains more of the day. And when I got to camp, I just slept. So lots of things that I maybe mentioned or that I would have liked to have mentioned in the video that I just didn't. And whilst I really like the video and there's some great footage within the video, there are areas that I certainly wish I could have added to. And so what I intend to do is just have a little introduction like this to each episode and a little outro, if you like, where I'll just touch on some of the things that maybe weren't mentioned very well in the film itself, or I did mention but I really didn't elaborate on and I would like to. So this is a particularly long one because of course it's the first episode, but the others should hopefully be a little bit shorter so you're not just watching me sitting in my living room, but at least you'll get some more context maybe as to some of the things and some of the experiences that I had while I was on the trail. So that's about it for this particular intro. This first episode, I go through a number of places. There's about 3 days contained in this first episode. I go through a place called 𝗵𝗆 National Park. I go along a beach called 9 Mile Beach, and I end in 𝗵𝗆𝗶𝗶𝗶 National Park as well. So I'll summarize those a little bit better at the end, but for now, enjoy episode 1. Again, thank you very much for watching. If you do like what you see, either in the first episode or any of the episodes following, please do like and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you're interested, check out the Great North Walk videos as well. They are, as I said, split up into episodes now, so they're a little bit easier to consume than a 2-hour video. But again, I just hope you enjoy it. I love doing these walks, I love having these adventures, and it's great to be able to share them with you as well. So please enjoy, and I'll stop talking now.
Well, good morning everyone. It's officially the start of day 1. It's 5:30 in the morning, so I am tired. I had a late night last night, finishing off some work things that I had to do before I got away. So late start, late finish, early start. But yeah, day 1 is upon us, so it's going to be a long day today. It's about 30 k's, hence why I'm up early to try and get going, and it's also going to be 30 degrees. So again, why I'm up early to try and get going before that. So walking from where I am now, Taree, onto a place called 𝗵𝗆𝗶𝗶𝗶. A little bit further on is 𝗗𝗆𝘆𝗀 Nature Preserve, which I might get to. I'm going to camp at either spot, I'm not quite sure yet. The first spot is the beach, so I'm not sure if I can or should camp there anyway, but the nature preserve is further on, so it'll be longer again. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to keep this one short because it's so early, and who knows what I'll say at this time in the morning. So for now, wish me luck. I'm going to get started. I'm going to go get some breakfast, and maybe once the blood's moving a little bit better, I will check in again and we can talk about how day one is unfolding. All right, yeah, I'll talk to you soon. This day was super simple at the start coming out of Taree. It was like, obviously, bitumen and road coming out of Taree, and then flat paths, bike paths, dirt but flat. But now I'm well and truly off the beaten track, and as you can see, it's a mess. And it's hot, so of course I'm on the lookout for snakes, but the most annoying thing is that there are spider webs everywhere. And after my night hike last Friday in the Royal National Park, I was kind of done with spiders for a while, and I was looking forward to hiking in the daytime. But because this is so overgrown, there are just spider webs everywhere. And the difference here about daytime spider webs is that you're not wearing a nightlight or a torch that highlights the spiders so you can see them. It's kind of easy to avoid them at night. In the daytime, you can't see them and you walk straight into them. So I'm getting awfully frustrated walking into spiderweb after spiderweb after spiderweb and wearing all these little spiders that are no doubt harmless, but I still don't want them crawling on me, you know, in an ideal world. Anyway, I got to try and get through this mess now, so yeah, wish me luck, I suppose. So I'm now 20 k's into day one. At about the 15k mark, it had been a really easy day. We'll just wait for the car. But the last 5 kilometers or so have been an absolute nightmare. This last stretch of track that I've been on was obviously caught up in the bushfires. I mean, the whole area was, you can see that, or a bushfire. So there's a lot of regrowth going on, and there's a lot of debris. And it appears, especially now that I've gotten to the end and there is a locked gate on this end, which is going to present yet another challenge, it appears like the track's just been left to, I guess, maybe regenerate, like around the area, but the track itself is completely horrible. Like, branches, trees, everything across the paths, but worse than that is the path actually disappears. So there was a period there where I had walked for maybe an hour, and I reached a river, a creek, and there was no path to be found on the other side. And according to my apps, you know, there was a path there, but there was no path, and that continued until I basically got to this point. But the real concern came when I found myself just surrounded in basically waist-high long grass, no path to be seen in any direction, and then looking at my apps, different apps, they were giving me different directions that I had to go. So that was kind of confronting, because I didn't know what way to go. I was around the path according to my apps, but I couldn't see a path, and the GPS were telling me different ways. So I downloaded some Google offline maps before I left, and I had found a creek, and I could see that that creek wasn't going to take me where I wanted to go, but it was a good point of reference. So I travelled back and I found some fence posts that were burnt. And as I started to follow those fence posts, I had the idea that, and I should have realised this earlier,
that I should be looking at my watch, which has better GPS. And so I did that and found out that by that point I was back on the track. But for quite a while there, I was just trudging through long grass, which on a hot day like today or on any day is pretty risky. I had no phone reception at all. So for a moment there, I got a little bit nervous about that situation, and rightly so. But at the same time, you know, I'm as prepared as I could be. You know, I have gaiters on, long socks underneath, long pants, PLB, snake bandages. Literally, I took them out and put them in my pocket, so I had them ready to go. So, you know, I was as prepared as you could be, and, you know, I'm certainly not the first person to bush bash. So, you know, once I sort of rationalised it that way, and I stopped for a while, I had to bandage up my hands a little bit. I've got several blisters from, I mentioned before about the spider webs. So spider webs and snakes, you know, 2 sticks, and then I eventually got my walking pole out as well. So my poor little tender hands have been torn up a little bit because I don't usually use poles or anything. So yeah, that was a little bit hairy for a while there, but I have reached the end of that track now, and I'm back into a built road, and that's going to take me down to the coast. However, as I said, there is a locked gate. Well, it's not locked, but it's got wire that's been wrapped around to keep it shut, and wrapped around very well, not just a little bit. So I'm going to have to spend some time unraveling that. And of course, where the wire is actually wrapped around, there's spiders as well sitting on the wire, because why not? Anyway, I'm going to carry on now. I might actually eat a little bit of lunch before I get moving, because it is like 1 o'clock or something now. I've still got somewhere between 5 to 10 k's to go, depending on what the campsites look like. So I've got a little way to go, but plenty of a day left. So yeah, I think I'll eat now and then I'll carry on. Anyway, that's enough for now. So it's day 2, and I'm on, I think it's 9 Mile Beach. Someone said 7 Mile Beach, but I think it's 9 Mile Beach. And it's beautiful, as you can see. It's just, well, a long beach. And I can pretty much see that's, hang on, that's my destination, a tip there. So, and I've come from just up at the other end there, in that township, that's Halliday's Point. So yeah, just walking. As you can see, I'm very covered up because of the sun, but it's like, I don't know what the temperature is. I don't think it's 30 degrees today, but it's hot, and I'm hot. But that's okay. So yeah, today's gone well so far. Saw some dolphins, got some nice footage around the place, a couple of nice photos, but yeah. Well, good morning. It is the morning of day 3. Seems to be going very quick so far, this walk, but as a collective it's going quick, but each day is, as you'd expect, fairly slow. It's been okay so far. It's been very hot. That's made it quite a challenge. Been going through a lot of water. I'm not sure about yesterday, but the first day was at least 4 litres. Yesterday, I went through Forster yesterday, so I was able to buy some drinks. But again, I would have gone through a similar amount. So with the sun being out and it being so warm, you just chew through your water. So it means I have to be really conscious of that and also carry a lot of water on me at all times, which is heavy, but necessary. But other than that, it's been okay. Lots of sand walking yesterday. I suspect maybe more today. It's either going to be beach and sand or road. I'm not sure which yet. I mean, this isn't a marked track. I'm just kind of making it up as we go along. So, yeah, we'll see. But I'm pretty much packed up now. I spent the night camping here at 𝗵𝗏𝗶𝗶𝗶 Beach, which is just outside of Forster. It's not often that you can camp on a beach, so it's kind of nice that you can here. And it's a beautiful spot. There's been whales and dolphins. There's whales out there right now, fair way out. But yeah, I've cooked myself some breakfast, some oats and some dried fruit. Unfortunately, there wasn't a McDonald's nearby, so I'm gonna eat that and then yeah, just pack up the tent. I'm just letting it sit out a little bit more. It was still a little damp from the night before last, so I'm just letting it properly dry, and then I'll wrap that up and I'll leave. But I know the descent down to the beach here yesterday was an absolute nightmare with the bag. It's really steep and really tough, which means it's going to be equally tough going up this morning. So it's a pretty challenging way to start the day, but I think today is only supposed to be around 20 k's, so a little bit shorter, so maybe that's a trade-off. Anyway, I'm going to eat my breakfast now, and yeah, I might talk to you a little bit later on. Okay, bye. So that's the end of episode 1. As I said, it covered about 3 days. The first being in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 National Park. The second was pretty much just along 9 Mile Beach, obviously ending in Forster as well, and spending the night at 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗶𝗏 Beach. And the last day was 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 National Park. I had originally intended to get further than that. As you might have noticed, that last day was only 18 kilometers. But I was knackered. It was so hot, I was exhausted, and day 3 is just, it's one of those days it's really tough. Your body's still adjusting, you've got the fatigue and the pain from the previous days, and it feels like day 3 is where it kind of all culminates. And then day 4, you're kind of good again. So yeah, 18 Ks was just the point that I had to stop, and really beyond that point, I didn't have really somewhere in mind that I would be able to stay. So yeah, it made sense. But it was a big, first couple of days. I think the main one to maybe expand upon a little bit is day 1. You would have seen some of the video there where I was talking about the track and how difficult that first track was, and then obviously getting stuck in what I call in the video just waist long grass. And I guess I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I was probably not doing it justice just as part of that particular video. That first day, once I was really deep inside that national park, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 National Park, the path that I was on just wholly disappeared. And as I said, I mentioned that it was kind of waist deep long grass, and it was, but it was also just a wall of vegetation in every direction. There was no clear direction that I could go. As I mentioned, my GPS devices were pointing in opposite directions. It was a pretty confronting experience, and certainly not one that I was expecting, because up until that point, I still had my Great North Walk mindset going, which was, I'm on a path, I just have to walk from A to B. And yeah, that just wasn't the case. The path was just not reliable. It was not there. I couldn't find it. And if it wasn't for, particularly my GPS watch, I would have been lost completely. I certainly could have backtracked. I wouldn't have been lost, but I wouldn't have been able to proceed. And that would have really just, thrown a real spanner in the works for the hike. Obviously, in the end, which you'll see further into the videos, I do actually save some time later in the walk. And that time maybe could have been applied to this early stage if I couldn't have gotten through, but I had no knowledge of that earlier on in the walk. So it was really important for me to be able to continue pressing forward. And there were points of that path where I thought I was stuffed. There was no way to go forward. So yeah, I mentioned in the video a little bit about it being quite confronting, and it was, because I had to sort of have that mental shift from trail walker to, I don't even know what you'd call it, a bushwalker, but really just exploring an area that had no clear path, and taking my safety into my own hands, and being as careful and as cautious as I can, but knowing full well that I was placing myself in harm's way. Whether that was realistic danger or exaggerated danger that really wasn't necessarily there, but because of media and things like that, you have a sense of danger. For example, swimming in the ocean, you think you're going to get attacked by a shark, but the odds are very low. So the reality of maybe being bitten by a snake in that particular area was quite low, but it didn't stop my mind screaming that I was putting myself at risk. So yeah, it was a confronting experience, but one that I managed to get through and gain some lessons from. I had a moment where I was quite stressed in there when I realized that I had no idea where I was, and just taking a moment to stop and have a bite to eat and bandage up my hands and make a new plan was really important, and not just to keep acting on impulse and worrying. And then just rationalizing the whole situation and knowing that I had what I needed to get through that situation. It was a minor situation all in all, but it didn't feel it at the time. So being able to control myself and take my time through that process was a great learning experience, which in part is what these things are all about. I'm not an expert hiker, I'm not an expert, videographer, which I'm sure you'll see plenty of times in this video, but I just get out there and give it a go, and I have everything I can to be safe and be as smart as I can when I'm out in the wilderness. But inevitably I'm going to come across situations that I'm not expecting, or that are a bit more hairy than I had planned on them being. And so I'm glad when I get to those moments that I'm able to fall back on rational thinking and methodical sort of planning, just to take one step forward and one after the other, and just get through whatever experience I'm having. So it's never always going to be that way. Inevitably you're going to hit a wall where you just cannot get through, and it would be unwise to try and push against that wall. So it is a strength to stop and call it a day as well. Luckily I didn't have to have that experience on any of these days, but it's an inevitability, right? Especially if you're going out and you're walking on an unmarked trail, one day you're going to hit an obstacle that you're just not going to be able to get around. So given my objective is to walk from the top to the bottom of New South Wales ultimately, I'm sure I'm going to have that experience somewhere along the line. But it didn't happen on this one. So yeah, it was a different, a unique experience, and kind of shifted my mind from, as I said, a trail walker to something a little bit more wild. But all in all, it went well, and I got out the other end, and yeah, it was a good first couple of days. So thanks for watching episode 1. if I can be savvy enough with YouTube, I will put a little link on the video here just to show you episode 2 so you can click straight through. I am terrible at YouTube. I am not that great at videos. So please, excuse the fact that this is also amateur. But what I absolutely love to do is to get out on the track and share that with you. So that's the ultimate goal here. And if you can bear with me through some of the amateur, technical difficulties, then I hope you enjoy the sharing of the adventures that I go on as well. All right, thank you, and I hope you enjoy watching. And if you do, follow the channel, give me a like, all that jargon, and then click on episode 2 and continue watching. All right, cheers.